man, we chopping it up in downtown Wilmington for the Kings in the Kitchen. How often do you see five super accomplished black men having a deeper conversation about what matters, men's health, and taking care of our families? And we're here with this great brother who is hosting us at his vegan restaurant, Eat Clean, as well as we want to thank Raising Kings for hosting these kinds of events, because these events are designed to provide people with life-saving, life-giving information.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Well, first and foremost, your spot is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's beautiful, and I'm guilty because I've never been here. But I tell you what, this is not going to be my last time here. The food is delicious, and you're so young and strong. And I'm like, what was your ambition to even get this? This is like, this is amazing.
I wanted to be, as I said earlier, I wanted to be in the downtown area. I wanted to be close to school and close to a train station. Coming from the north, New Jersey, New York, all of the healthy places are close to the train station because everybody's on and off the train going to New York City. But I wanted to see us. I wanted our impact in the downtown area. I didn't want to go, 30th and Market, you know what I mean, where it's a bunch of us. I wanted to break the mold.
Right.
And nothing against that. That's cool. I'll do that also. But I wanted to break the mold.
You're doing it big.
And that was my goal with coming here.
You think that there's other people that can really follow your footsteps as a young king?
Absolutely. The number one goal with establishing a business, right, was to create something that my younger brothers can continue on. That was the number one thing. I wanted it to always be bigger than me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, so I'm gonna get it, cut you a check because you're doing it big. You know what I'm saying? Let's keep it real. You practice generational wealth right now. But hold on. So at this lunch gathering of this good food that we got going on, so I'm thinking that school is difficult sometimes. But Doc, how in the world are you a surgeon / attorney at the same time overseeing one of the largest hospitals? I just need to know how you did it, what was your commitment, and what gave you the audacity to think that you could even do it? Because I've never seen a person that's built like you. You built like a runner. I'm thinking that, I heard that you was in the Olympics and all that. So I need to know, when did it start?
Yeah, we need to know the whole story, man.
I need to hear it.
The whole story.
Dude, you just asked me to talk about myself. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
So I will try and be brief. So So I grew up in Virginia. I was never an athlete, believe it or not. I was always the last guy to get picked for football, basketball, baseball, or whatever it was. So I spent a lot of time studying and reading. And so over the course of time, I was actually identified as being pretty smart, so I applied to this program called A Better Chance. So I left home at 16 to attend high school in Glastonbury, Connecticut. And from there, the president, the vice president, and the treasurer were all graduates of Dartmouth College. So I ended up at Dartmouth College. I went back to Dartmouth for medical school. Spent some time in New York and Atlanta doing training, 8 years. And then at some point, I decided I was going to go back to law school. And so I'm not an attorney, but I do have a master's degree from Delaware Law School. So that was part of my sort of transition plan. If I ever had to get out of surgery, I'd have something to rely on. And actually, education is very important to me. I'm actually starting a Harvard Surgical Leadership Training Program in the spring, which will take about a year to complete. And after that, I hope to get my MBA. So I just love education, and it's just one of the things that I think I'm pretty good at, so I want to keep doing it.
So you're like the light-skinned Denzel of surgery. I mean, that's like the creme of the creme where I'm from. Denzel Washington is like top, and I'm like, wow. That is, so basically you telling me that never to complain about school again. That's what you're saying essentially.
I just love learning. It opens up new world. I mean, if you want to, hide something, you put it in a book.
That's right. So, and what would you say to our young kings about education? And is it free? Are you able to afford yourself anything that you want? And I'm not talking about financial aspect, but because of the hard work you put in, how does that correlate to freeing yourself from the communities that we all trying to get out of?
So mental slavery is around us. And if we believe what people tell us, we won't go further. I think we all have to have this inner fortitude that, you know, we can be kings, we can be better. I feel extremely free. You know, I'm not the richest person in the world, but I can provide for my family. I can buy books. I can read. You know, I can go to school.
You said you could buy books or boats?
I like books.
Okay.
I love books. If you come to my house, we have bookcases of books.
Wow.
I mean, because that's my daughters. My youngest daughter just went to college. She was distraught because she couldn't take a box of books. But we just, as a family, we read because there's so much knowledge in books. You can take a trip and never leave your home.
Wow. That's powerful. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And so, Taylor, I know you humble, right? But there's like 2 point guards that can shoot from half court. That I wonder if they can give you a run for your money. You got Steph Curry, and you got the Splash Brothers. Do you think, because when I first met you, they said he's like a celebrity. He's been around the whole world. You are one of the primary shooters that, you know, this state has ever seen. Where do you think you range in shooting among those that are like elite?
Always like that. So it's hard talking about yourself, especially when you're always humble with it. Like I mean, I still look at Steph Curry now, and I say when I'm joking with my friends, like, man, I was doing that before him. Y'all knew me before y'all knew Steph Curry. You know? And I said jokingly, but you know, there's some truth in jokes. But I mean, I respect everything that he's doing. You know, I respect it. Like, by no means, I'm like, hey, you can't downplay what he's doing.
Right.
You know, it's you know, like with the hard work and me playing basketball and everything, that was my escape. That was my way out. That was gonna be my end all be all.
Right.
So, you know, sitting here listening to Doc about being a law, you know, law school and that, like everything that they say, be a lawyer or a doctor. Here you are, almost both of them. And you know, it's like I look at that and I'm like, wow. Like I feel like you're a great mentor for a lot of the kids, you know, raising kings. Like you are probably should be at the forefront of it because we don't think that we can do that. You know, like that's something that we don't believe in growing up. Yeah, we don't see that. Like
And
you
an
know,
athlete.
Exactly. Yeah, and the athlete. I'm thinking like, wow. And I'm sitting here thinking I want to say stuff about me, but I'm still stuck on what you were saying. Right? You know, and I'm like, that's amazing to me. Like, I mean, major kudos, they call it at work. Like, that's awesome. You know, and but so to go back to what you were saying, basketball. Like, I feel like, you know, I'm in the Hall of Fame here in Delaware. I feel like it took me a while to get in, but I made it. You know, I mean, I don't really know what to say about it. Like, I was happy that my son had a chance to see it, and my daughters had a chance to see it, and you know, we were there at the ceremony, and I was like, okay, Dad didn't go to the NBA, but look, here I am. I'm in the Hall of Fame in Delaware.
Right.
And my son kind of, like, that was a big deal to him. Even for my daughters, you know, so that kind of made me appreciate it more. And I was like, okay, let me be proud about this. Like, I'm not going to downplay because I didn't go to the NBA, because that was my ultimate dream. And I'm like, my kids are happy with what I achieved here. I'm like, okay, so I'm a Marlin. Like, yeah, let's take a picture. And I'm smiling hard, you know, with my suit on. It felt good. It felt good. So even like coaching now, I coach at Wellington now, and I coached at Newark for the last 6 years. So the kids are stuck on everything that I say. So now I have to be mindful of just my character always have to be on point, which I like to, you know, I take that personal anyway. I'm being a stand-up guy, so everything that I say to them, they listen to everything I say. So I have to make sure I'm giving them sound advice, real advice when it comes to playing a game of basketball. And I always say, I'm not trying to shoot anybody's dreams down. The NBA is hard. If that's what you want to do, I need your commitment. If you want me to be like, because that's like a major, some major work we have to put in. You know, so I just like to be, you know, for the kids, I like to give them sound advice, and I like the kids to be kind of, because everything I say, like I said, they're on every word I say, they're kind of like, so I can't lead them the wrong way, you know, but when they hear Hall of Fame, they automatically think, so are you rich or you, I'm like, I'm in the Hall of Fame. I'm not rich, but I have a lot of knowledge for you as far as the game of basketball and life. And what I have to be mindful of, you know, coaching, I'm like, I don't want to make this about what I accomplished because now it's about you. So I want to put you in the forefront, but I'm here at your disposal if you need me. So I try to give them everything that I can when they ask for it. Even if they don't ask, I always got something to say. Not no grandstand, I'm like, maybe you should try it like this or do it this way or do it that way. And I try to be as helpful as I can. But like I said, it's hard talking about this stuff. I'm kind of
You've been shooting before shooting was popular.
Yeah, that was my way. You know, Delaware, we have smaller guards, and I was one of them. So that was my thing. I knew I couldn't go down there with the big guy, but I could shoot with anybody. And I still feel like that. Like right now, I'm like, man, I need Steph Curry, but man, he got to outshoot me.
Well, he just shot 153s.
Yes, I got to say somebody else. I got to say somebody else there.
Don't leave yourself out, John.
Huh?
Don't leave yourself out.
Yeah, this
You
guy.
know,
Wait, let me say something. Like when she first told me that he was going to be, I was like, cool. I said, man, Cook's the man. He knows everything. Like I learned a lot talking to him in the gym in general conversation. Easy guy to talk to, very knowledgeable about everything that I was interested in. And I would leave, I was like, yo, that guy know a lot of stuff, man. Like, I would be looking for him, like, yo, man, I need to talk to you. And he always gave me sound advice, especially about the working out part. Like he's well versed in that as well. Like, and he helped me a lot. I need pointers in the gym. He gave me one workout. I think he might have couldn't lift my arm for 3 days. So I'm not calling him anymore. He's another. He needed to unhumble himself.
I appreciate that. So, so for me, the state of Delaware gave me an opportunity to breathe, to really figure out who I wanted to be, create an identity, and kind of follow that path. Brooklyn was crazy crowded. I couldn't even think because you was always trying to survive. So when I got here, I was always the person that was very competitive. I started understanding systems. How could I make myself be a system and not have to actually work within corporations and always have to work for a person? And I realized that the only way that I would do that is not just having street education and having books here and there, but actually going to get some sort of education. So I went on, obviously I went to a theological school in Brooklyn, New York, because I needed to be centered by the Word of God. I want to proclaim that, first and foremost. But then when I got here, there was like theological school, that ain't really on paper, right? So then I went to school for psychology, obviously graduated. Then I was like, well, just having an undergrad in psychology, it's like your personal construct because you're just regurgitating what you're reading in books. So you're still working within a system you don't really own. So then I went back to school for a mental health clinician. Right now I'm in my practicum stages. So what that means is that I'm working with, appointed with Delaware Psychiatric Center before I can get my licensure and graduate. But I have a case management from it. So I kind of set myself up. See those things that you get from Brooklyn? Is that before you even graduate, you're doing the case management and then you're doing your contracts within schools. How do you do that? It's the hustle.
Yeah.
You learn hustle.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the private part. The public part is that I work my way up because Taylor and I started together. Then I realized that I needed to leave because I needed to understand the resources within the community in order for me to succeed. So I just went from one agency within a state, worked my way up through the ranks, became a senior social worker for Newcastle County. Then I became an administrator for Porter State Service Center, which is a catchment area on the west side that helps those that are destitution and poverty, homelessness, domestic violence. That became a passion. Then I realized that my love for homeless people is the biggest thing that I can ever imagine. because I feel like they're the broken pieces of our society that's seldomly unseen, and impoverished people. Rose to the ranks, and that became the chief of housing for the state of Delaware. And then obviously was appointed by Governor Kamil to become the deputy director for group violence intervention. And what that is the program that focuses on those that are doing the shooting in the community, have the highest propensity for violence, and those that have the propensity to be shot. So as the acting deputy director, working under the tutelage of, Bobby Cummins, who's the former chief of police, our goal is to help those that are in the destitution, hardships of communities that are extremely violent, have violent tendencies based on their community, and get them out those communities and help them become better. I just always wanted to be better than what was given to me. I was always inspired by competitive nature. Of course, obviously, you got people like Jay-Z was my go-to guy. Now I got Doc. And, I'm extremely humbled because Delaware gave me a chance to breathe and kind of and paint a picture of what I wanted to become. And I couldn't ask for more, so, and that's the reason why I really, my desire is to have, obviously, my own licensed practice for therapeutic services. Right now it's on a case management level. The next step is the licensure, because when you become licensed, you can accept Medicaid, high mark insurance. And as a young dude, that's all I want to do, is impact those people that Tel was talking about. They might not want to talk to somebody else. They're going to want to talk to me because I can identify. Yeah. So, and saying that brings me to you, brother, because you have Brooklyn Finest, someone else, it's like, wow, you've always been an entrepreneur. It seems like you understand systems and being your own leader and your own boss way before, we even thought about that. What made you want to do that?
So for me, man, I had to reconcile some internal demons. Witnessing my best friend literally being gunned down in front of me was a major struggle. It's even a struggle now, even though that happened 1989. That thing is still fresh, right? That trauma is still fresh. And so for me, it was I needed to figure out a way to understand systems and make money legally at the same time. And so it's been very interesting, man, because most people don't really know what I do. Like, even if you ask Chandra and other people who know me, they really don't know what I do. But I literally get paid to think. I mean, and when I tell young people that, they are blown away that that's my job. I get paid to think. I write. I mean, I've written 16 books. I decided to go back to school. You was talking about working 16 hours. I get it in, whether it's research, preparation, writing. But what I realized early on was that this is my birthright as a black man in this country. I want it all, man. Man, I wake up and I'm like, yo, this gotta be a dream, man. Like, literally, it's gotta be a dream. So I've been blessed, but at the same time, like on my bathroom wall, if you walk into my bathroom, I got this thing on my wall, like, you will not outwork me. I'm not the smartest dude, but you just not gonna outwork me. So you probably think I'm from Brooklyn, right? But I'm from Baltimore.
Let's get started. I think I'm gonna do some strawberry in my bowl.
Man, I'm gonna start with pineapples. And then I'm gonna pass them.
Well, I have to admit, this is my first ICA bowl. I'm not even sure I said it right.
Yeah, this is my first as well.
Doc, I got a question for you. Are you approve our social distancing?
Sure, we're 6 feet apart and we're masked.
All right, Doc, here's some strawberries.
Well, thank you.
I got pineapples down on my end.
Okay, I'm
Anybody
gonna
want pineapple?
pass the pineapples.
I'll try some of the pineapples.
Hey, they coming down to you, brother.
Gotcha.
Pineapples are on their way.
I'll have some strawberries and pineapples.
Strawberries, huh?
And then, man, y'all can go ahead and pass some blueberries.
We just gotta keep
on
these
this
to
side of the
ourselves.
table.
Taylor's a regular here. You got all this toppings down here.
Yeah.
For the
Tell them keeping a secret.
It's one of the best kept secrets you have to get here.
How did you get started with the restaurant and the healthy food?
So I got started with healthy food by, changing my eating habits, and after doing that, my youngest brother, he got diagnosed with diabetes.
Wow.
So I started looking into juicing to try to help him combat taking the medicine with changing his eating habits and supplementing his meals with fresh juice. Yeah, so that started the idea of it, and then it went from that to me letting my friends try the juices out, and the word just spreading, and it just took off. It just took off. So we've been in this location now for about 2.5 years. So we decided to bring it here because we felt like it was a void. There wasn't too many places that had where you can go and get healthy food, get a smoothie, get a cold pressed juice, and this location had a few of the it had the requirements that we wanted. We wanted to be in the downtown area, close to a train station, and then close to a school. And this fit all of the criteria.
Awesome. So, Camille, let me ask you a question. So, does juicing and like your healthy eating habits, so it has to like holistically be like on the same accord? If you start juicing, do you have to become like a vegan or
Not
vegetarian?
necessarily, but they're not even synonymous at all, because you can be vegan and still be unhealthy. You can be vegan and still eat things with a lot of sugar.
Okay.
Still not, taking the right amount of protein, taking the right amount of iron. So just being vegan doesn't make a person necessarily healthy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I personally suggest that people who do look into becoming vegan to consult with a doctor to try to figure out what foods that they should take in to supplement the things that they won't be getting from meat.
I appreciate that.
I think it brings up another point. If you look at the labels on food, if you look at some of the foods that are fat-free or low-fat, it's actually the calories that hurt you as well. So you have to really look at the labels to make sure that fat-free is not just building calories for you.
All right. See, I thought I was a changed man because I shopped at Trader Joe's. So that brings up an interesting point, because thinking the way the serotonin in your brain is like that, those transmitters that are like that it controls the way your mood is stabilized. Right. So I always thought that typically me changing my eating habits, the things I put into my system, would control obviously the vicissitudes and struggles that's going on out here, because every day you go through these, as men itself and females, you go through working, you go through family, you go through the pressures of maintaining, FICO scores, whatever it may be. So when you can control your thoughts and your happiness and your joy, ultimately you're able to control your pathways to life. So that's why this is so interesting to me. So I'm definitely going to add this to my diet as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think eating is the start. It's the start to change the thought process. It's the start to changing how we think. It's to start with the things that we consume.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Blackwell, when you think about stress, how does stress impact Black men as it relates to health and wellness?
It's a big component of what leads to a lot of medical problems. And I think that stress is a normal part of life. I think we have to it's how we deal with stress that affects us. And the way I've dealt with stress over the years is I always try and find time for myself, whether it's a quiet moment, whether it's exercising for an hour, spending time reading a book. But I think we have to always find time just to let ourselves just have a moment for ourselves, let all the woes and worries just take a break.
I think, Doc, also, because you're here, I'm just going to be picking your brain all day.
That's all right.
And so they positive stresses or youth stresses, like those things that actually fuel you to do things better, like when your back is against the wall, you feel like you want to go further and do more, right? And I think that all runs synonymous in the way that you eat, the way that you, even getting like good rest. How do you feel like getting good rest really affects us as Black men and trying to go out there and do positive things within the communities and, trying to do our best?
I think we do need adequate rest every night, whether it's 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours. Each of us is very different. At one point in my life, I was only sleeping 3 hours a night, but that was what I needed. I need a little bit more now, but we each have to find where our balance is. But if you don't give your body a chance to rejuvenate at night or during the day, whatever your sleep pattern is, your body never really recovers.
Okay. Appreciate it, doctor.
The piggyback off what you're saying, I work kind of like 16 hours a day. And, you know, I'm 44 years old now. And when I was younger, I could go on and on and on. And now I slowed down a little bit, but the fact that I watch what I eat, I'm still able to work 16 hours and still work out for an hour and do other things just while having those, you know, having a 16-hour work day. I'm still able to do the things that I normally would do had I been working 8 hours because of like the things that I eat. And, you know, like talking to John, you know, he said, things that you eat, it affects your mood and how you are. So I've noticed, like as far as health is concerned for me, the things that I eat, I pay attention to what I put into my body and how my body reacts, how my brain, everything. Like if I eat a certain amount of cheese, 20 minutes later I have a headache. So I pay attention to everything that I eat, and I'm like, I can't eat cheese like that no more because it affects me this way. So certain things that I eat give me the energy I need to work 16 hours and to be able to still work out and function normally. You know, with me working, if I was to work 8 hours. But I'm not a fool. If my body is telling me to slow down, I'm gonna call off, I'm gonna lay down for a couple hours and I'm not gonna do anything. So I listen to my body, but I know the thing that I put in my body helps me throughout the day. It helps me a lot though, the things that I put inside of my body. I did realize that though.
I would agree. I grew up on a tobacco farm in Virginia, and we ate meat every meal, every day. As I became an athlete and learned about diet and nutrition, and I stopped eating a lot of red meat and I relied more on poultry and fish, I did notice a change in my body.
Right.
So what you're saying is absolutely true. What we put in does affect how we feel and how we act.
So when's the last time you guys have been to the doctor, man? I mean, I had my annual about 2 weeks ago. What about the rest of it?
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm afraid to go to the doctor. Every time you go to the doctor, they got something to say.
Right.
And I'm gonna rebuke you, right? So, listen, we just spoke about the doctor. We spoke about getting those original gangster OG tails from the gym. I had this one guy that was like, you know, if you got protein in your urine, that means that you could lift a lot of weights. You know, and you see it when you urine daily, you see the little bubbles fizzle, and you're like, yeah, I'm feeling strong. And the doctor's like, no, Mr. Cup, that means you got protein in your urine. I'm like, well, that's a good thing. She's like, no. That means that the kidney is releasing some things that it's not supposed to. It's misconceptions, the education, right? So all of the times that I'm thinking that something is working, she said, no, we have to change some things. So on the outer exterior, you could be the strongest, biggest man, but what does that matter if inside you're slowly dying, right? And so basically what I started to do is just to go to ophthalmologists, go to, to dermatologists, ensure that I get to the dentist, get my physicals, because guess what, if you're working and you got insurance, why not use it?
Yeah.
If I used to wake up and be like, man, if I got to do 315, 1,000 reps, I'm healthy. And she was like, nah, it doesn't work like that. So the last time I went to the doctor was about 3 weeks ago.
I went about a month ago. I went last month.
You said last month?
Yeah, I went about a month ago.
What about the rest of y'all, man?
I'd say like last month for me too.
So I go every year on my birthday. My birthday's coming up in a couple months. And I think when you go, it's important to ask questions.
Right.
What's my blood pressure? What's my blood sugar? What's my cholesterol? These are things that will silently kill us if we don't address them.
Okay.
And a lot of times we have these diseases and we deny them. Our body's telling us through different means, whether we're tired, fatigued, little aches, but we have these diseases and we choose to ignore the signs. And when we present for medical care, it's late and the complications already started setting in. So it's important for us to get our annual exams and follow up on these treatments, because just not knowing doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
I think that's important because there's a lot of misinformation, man. I remember I posted on social media that I got my prostate exam, and there were brothers like, you don't even need to take a prostate exam. All you got to do is eat right and exercise every day. So how do we address the myths around things like prostate screening and other major screenings?
It's education, and I think that there are a lot of myths and misconceptions that prostate cancer is very prominent in African American men. And typically when we present late in the disease course and we can't get the earlier, maybe less invasive treatments, and we end up with the most invasive treatments. Whereas if we had a digital rectal exam and a PSA lab test every year or every other year, probably every year, we would know a lot sooner if there was a problem. But again, it's one of those things that we deny, and it catches up with us in the end.
Let me ask you a question. What's one question that you suggest us as black men, with you being in the medical field, that we should ask when we go to the doctor that we may neglect?
I think when we go, I wish there was just one question to ask. Overall health is critical, but blood pressure is one of the things that kills us. It really has no symptoms, yet when it manifests itself, it's stroke, it's heart attack, kidney disease requiring dialysis, fatal aortic tears and ruptures that kill us immediately, and it's eye problems. No outward symptoms, but we need to know what is our blood pressure, because that's something we can address, whether it's with diet or medication or a combination, something we can address and treat and have a positive impact.
Dr. Fame, do you see, like, oh, well, let's talk about low cholesterol, like high cholesterol, right? The doctor like, well, your high cholesterol is good, but then your low cholesterol is, how important is that?
I mean, it's critical. If we look at cholesterol, it's a risk factor for most arterial disease. If you look at stroke, again, heart attack, kidney disease, cholesterol is a risk factor for all of it, because cholesterol plaques build up in those arteries and it compromises blood flow to those vital organs. And when you lose blood flow, organs die.
Wow. Dave, I just want to ask one more question. Have you, well, I can't answer that because it's confidentiality. Well, you being a surgeon, right? Have you ever done surgery and you thought to yourself, man, I wish that you would have used preventative methods to get in here because you seem like you're a reasonable healthy. Do you think that more surgery is more so bad habits or uninformed people?
It's a combination. I think that unfortunately we live in a very difficult time right now, and patients can't afford their medications.
Right.
And we see a lot of patients who come to the hospital for treatment, and you ask them, we know you have this history where you're taking medications, and the answer is no. And when you delve further into it, the answer is I can't afford them. Whether it's for lack of insurance or loss of job, there are a variety of reasons. But if they can't afford the medications, it's going to create problems. And we do see patients who, at very young ages, have disease that's far advanced for what you expect for them. And it's because they've denied things that have happened to them over the years, not treated them either with diet changes or medication, and it creates problems. For sure.
So John, let's talk about mental health. I mean, I know there's a lot of discussion around mental health. I grew up in Baltimore, man. I've lost about 16 of my friends to suicide. Guys I grew up in the neighborhood with, guys I went to college with. How do we address the stigmas around mental health with black men?
Oh, so there's like varying factors to mental health, and sometimes it can be through the hereditary, obviously through the core pressures of life, more times environmental, and then in conjunction to substance abuse. And then we have like these, some people have a diagnosis of, untreated diagnosis of depression or anxiety, which is a huge deal because there is a stigma of mental health and actually talking to a counselor in African American community. And at the criterion of depression or anxiety, if it persists longer than 60 days, it actually becomes a diagnosis. It's very difficult, and then it becomes acute. One of the things that we should recognize is like the onset from children, sleeping a lot of the times. And within our communities, and no community is far away from this, that there's evidence of a lot of violence within our communities. If you see that your kids are witnessing either bullying or participating in bullying, if there are around a lot of fights and violence, rather than coming home and saying, toughen up, well, give them some help, give them some aid, give them some assistance. And then also the sonic waves of what they're listening to on the radio, what they're seeing. There's a persistent airwaves of violence that talks about murder and all this stuff because they're impressionable. They haven't developed their own identity. So there's a psychotherapist that's named Eric Erickson. He talks about the stages of development. The trust versus mistrust, the identity phases of life. And children, they're learning who they are, but then they're becoming who they are based on what they're seeing out there. In our communities, the biggest examples for us was not the doctors, was the drug dealers. Those that were out there committing treason in their own community, killing your own people. And the kids are seeing this because they got the biggest cars, the biggest chains, right? The biggest dollars in their pocket. And they want to become that. And then when they become that, they get caught into the system. And then when you get caught into the system, it's hard for you to identify and become who you are. And then it's more persistent mental illness. You got to start getting into the marijuana, get into the alcoholism. And that's a huge deal within our community that really needs to be addressed. If you're feeling something going on inside of your mind, talk to somebody about it. And it's not something that you could typically, and I don't want to say pray away because I believe in that. But sometimes you got to talk, and sometimes you need a psycho assessment, and sometimes you need some mood stabilization and go and get treatment in the hospital.
To that point, John, when you say talk about it, I think that's one of the biggest issues in our community. Communication. We don't communicate to each other. We don't communicate about how we feel. We don't communicate about things that's going on. And I think a lot of the issues, violence-wise, are because of a lack of communication.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We don't even know how to say, you know what? I stepped on your shoe. I'm
Right.
sorry. You know what I mean? I didn't
Yeah.
mean to.
Right.
Which can lead to someone getting shot. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I think that part of us not knowing how to communicate within our community, amongst ourselves,
Right.
it leads to a totally bigger problem.
No, I agree with you. And one of the things too is that if you see violence and you see that one man bumps into another man, and his trigger is the first response is to kill that man. Because obviously those are build up. You see how Doc talks about plaques within the heart, and build up, that's how heart attacks occur. Let's talk about the persistent violence in that environment. What would make you kill a man if he bumps into you, if he talks about you on Facebook? These things are, so their brains are not developed yet to cognitively say, you know what, let me talk to him about this. If all they did was witness violence, they're gonna emulate all that they know. And ultimately, it's not through fighting anymore. Me and Tel grew up in an era where we used to fight. Now they're not trying to fight.
Even what you were saying, like with the talking aspect of it, wanting to talk to somebody, where, the environment that I grew up in or what we grew up in, some of us, and it's not even a racial thing, but it is. Me personally, I wasn't talking to nobody white, not because I was told not to bring my family business, leave that inside the house and deal with it. And I can be dealing with parents getting high, brother, sister, everybody in there under the influence of alcohol or drugs, but I can't come to school and talk about that because I gotta keep this home. I can't bring my business here because now y'all gonna come to the house and potentially take me away. So I would have to shoulder all of that as a kid, and I'm trying to make it through school and think about passing to the next grade when all hell is breaking loose in my house and I can't talk to anyone about it. And I'm like, man, I deal with it. And 12 years of high school, I done dealt with trauma from seeing things go on in my own family that I can't talk, that I don't feel comfortable talking about because I gotta, what they say, air your dirty laundry out, you keep it in-house. So I couldn't talk about it. And a lot of the kids now that I come across that I work with, a lot of them say, man, I'm not talking to them, Mr. D. I ain't saying nothing to them. So they're going through the same thing that that we may have went through as kids. So it's like, and I may be depressed, but I can't even talk to anybody about it because the doctors that come before me don't look like me. So now I'm like, man, I'm gonna deal with it. Like, man, I'll talk to my boys when I get out. And I'm like, nah, you need to get help. Like, if this person can help you, go talk to them. And if you need to talk to me. But a lot of depression, everything that you speak on is because they're afraid to open up to someone that doesn't look like them.
No, I agree. And I think, so one of the things is that what we study is cultural competency. And understanding the person that you're talking to, understanding diversity, which it includes the ethnicity, the core values of what it means to be in the street and not talk to somebody about how you feel, because it could be perceived as one is snitching. It could be perceived as showing weakness. And in the community, in order for you to survive, you have to be the strongest, right? So then that begs the question of what do we perceive as the strongest? Is the man that walks away from violence, is he not perceived as stronger? The man that actually goes on to get his education and do something with his life, is he not stronger? So why is it that the person that graduates from school doesn't get the party, but the person that does 4 years from prison that comes home get the huge party? So our perception is what we are creating within our culture. If I'm suffering, I can't come to tell and say, hey, listen, can you pray with me? Can you talk to me about this? Can you just sit with me for a second? Because some things are going through my mind that I can't identify with. And unfortunately, these are the things that we're dealing with. And this is the generational disparity that we're dealing with. Until we're able to talk about the things that we're going through and effectively make change, then we're going to continue to see this recidivism of mass incarceration, domestic violence, substance abuse in our community. Because it's something that we need to talk to, and our kids need to be comfortable with expressing themselves.
Yeah, man, I agree, John, wholeheartedly. And when you were talking, I was just thinking about the role of fathers, man, and the role that fathers play in within the household and with the larger community, and particularly when we think about, mental health. When I was a freshman in college, I was at Morgan State. My best friend was at Morehouse. We were standing in front of a nightclub. 3 guys tried to rob us. We didn't have the money they wanted. They started shooting. They shot my best friend in the back with a sawed-off shotgun. Had I not had a sober, responsible, spiritually guided father who said that we will not retaliate. If I didn't have that growing up, we'd have went out and found this brother. We'd have taken his life, man. So I think in this conversation around violence, conversations around mental health, I think that we really have to begin to look at how do we holistically address many of the issues that the black family is faced with. And I think a lot of that can be directly connected to fathers, man, and the work that we need to do in communities with fathers. And I'm real interested in hearing what you guys think about how do we address mental health, reducing violence, all of those issues that we see that are plaguing black communities throughout this country.
Well, really quick for me, my dad committed suicide. So I never even experienced what it felt like for a guy to take you to a basketball game, or to teach you about the vicissitudes of life, or even like you're going across the stage and you're graduating for someone to say, man, good work, man. I never experienced that. So my mother was both father and mother. So I think that having a father in your life is the most needed thing, because what happens is it teaches you how to identify and how to resolve things rationally. And oftentimes, you think about nature versus nurture. You could resolve things in an irrational way because you're not harnessing your emotions the correct way. You're not rationally thinking. And I think having a twofold household is very important from my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up, my father wasn't present. I was blessed to have uncles that were like a phone call away, that would teach me a lot of things, that would teach me how to change a tire, teach me the things that we should know as a man growing up, because my father wasn't there to fulfill that role. But I think it also helped having my uncles to learn how to deal with my emotions. Growing up, I had anger issues and stuff like that, and just having them, they would talk to me about just how to process your anger and then getting into sports and channeling that energy a different way. And I think that's one of the things that we need to help kids in our community, help them channel that energy to do something more constructive with.
Yeah, you guys pass them pineapples down here. I got all this sit down there.
I know it's getting a little deep, but
Just
we
slide
talking fathers, we're going to pass the pineapples.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think, as far as the father aspect, and speaking on what the question that you asked, my father wasn't in my life either, so I kind of I kind of made my family up of my friends, and my brother stepped in and played the father role for me, and that's who I turned to for everything. And he was a teenager, but he was teaching me everything about sports, about how to do my hygiene, how to take care of myself, and I learned so much from him. And it was so now with me being a father, I'm still kind of learning every day about how to be a father. And people say, so how do you feel, with your father not being around? I was like, oh, that was like nobody in my immediate circle had a father around. So I felt like the norm was every family was a single family household, like the mom, and it was so crazy. The crazy part about it is when I did come across some friends who had a mom and a dad in the house, I said, man, they fake. They're not real. They're not real. They don't exist.
So they not real.
Yeah, they're not real. Like that's a lie. And it was like, because I never had a chance to experience that, so now being a father, it's like I'm trying to do everything I can for my kids and be everything that I can be. And I know I make a lot of mistakes. And I beat myself up a lot because I'm like, I didn't do that right. I didn't handle that right. Why don't my kids respond to me this way or that way? And I'm feeling like, and this is some of the times that I missed a lot of lessons by not having my father there. And it wasn't right or fair for me to expect my brother to teach me the things that my father should have been teaching me when his father wasn't there. So it was like, so now I'm sitting here, like my friends, or when I see a guy that's a good father, man, I'll be quick to, like, man, big ups to you, like you're doing a great job. Like guys that's younger than me, I'm like, yo, man, I admire what you're doing, how you being a father to, to your kid. But that's a big deal to me because that's something that I struggle with. Am I doing a good job? And I feel like the two-parent household, and, because working in the fields that I work in, coaching, seeing parents, the mom and the dad come. So I've learned I just want to deal with the man. Like I don't, no disrespect to the woman, but I feel like men should deal with men. So I want to deal with the father. And back to what John was saying, we didn't have that. Our moms had to do that. And like I couldn't really deal with that. So it would be a bunch of emotions involved in it. So we would miss out on a lot because knowing my mom, she probably started snapping. So like, come on, mom, we gotta go now, man. So I'd have missed the whole AAU tournament and everything because you yelling and cussing. But I have my father, like me being there for my son, and I'm able to talk to the coach and reason and understand, like, no, mom, we're not going to say he needs to play too. He's not good enough. And as a dad, I understand that with a mom, like, my baby should play too, and he deserves to get a trophy. No, I'm not doing that to my son. He didn't earn one because he wasn't good enough. And I feel like fathers understand that. Moms are nurturers. So, no, my baby needs a trophy. He did. And I'm like, no, don't worry about it. I'll take it. Come on, y'all, let's leave.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And how many of us without fathers cried to that Will Smith TV show when he said, "You're not coming back home"? And that's a real thing. It's a real true thing. That's powerful. Do you think that because we went through what we've been through, do you feel like that makes us even stronger advocates to want to really help the community, impact the young men so they don't have to deal with the things that we had to deal with?
I think so because you understand that pain. You understand the feeling. You know what I mean? And then to even make it to a point where you recognize how to counteract the things you're going through yourself and then recognize it in somebody else. So that push to want to help is a lot stronger because you made it to the other side. You know what I mean? Because I think if you grew up without a father, you could have easily slipped into doing the wrong things. You know what I mean? The pressure is always there.
No, you're right. I mean, the pressure is always there. And just, listening to the conversation, I grew up with a father. My parents were married 51 years. My mom passed away a couple of years ago. But I also think back to coaches and other men in my life who were mentors. And even today, I'm around a circle of men who are going to say to me, did you get your prostate exam? Are you getting your annual checkups? Have you thought about seeing a therapist, right? Based on some of the things, that happen to me. How many of you guys have mentors that you get really good information from?
I learned to accept mentors now. That I wouldn't let a man in my earliest stages of life really give me information because I felt like I had to go through those struggles of life by myself. And so now, as I feel like I'm in a whole situation, I'm able to accept information. And I don't know why I always used to run from information because I always felt like I had to go out there and get it myself. But now I always ask questions, and I do have a lot of mentors. One of them, Dr. A.R. Bernard, out of Brooklyn, New York. He stepped in and was like a father figure when I was like 17 up, and he showed me what chandeliers look like, right? Because I was like, wait, why is your walls red? Where's all this art? Like, right? Like, why do you have a 3-piece suit on, or a long trench coat? Why do your shoes are hard at the bottom? And why do you read every night? I've never seen that. All of the OGs in my life was depositing hatred in me, letting me think that moving coke and Beamerton and all this other stuff was a big deal. They're giving me a wrong perception, like I'm a young boy, go get me a 40 ounce. He said, no. I want you to sit here and read this book. Get yourself educated. I want you to understand what FICO score is about, what stocks and bonds, S&P funds. So this guy came in my life and showed me something different. I was like, is a human being like this? You mean to tell me you got a car with a license?
Right.
You mean to tell me you got a credit card? You own properties? How could I
You
do
got a
that?
passport?
Come on.
Come on, man.
You mean to tell me you love your wife? I've never seen, listen to me. I don't know if this is the same. I've never seen where I grew up, a man love his wife.
That's heavy, man.
And that's real. And shout out to people in Brooklyn that's going to see this, but they know what I'm talking about. That I've never seen that. I've never seen him hold his wife's hand, walk up the street, and hug her. I've never seen that. So you imagine when you get into your own situation, you got to figure things out. What do you mean? Selflessness. What do you mean? You don't even know how to fix a garage door. You understand? So you can imagine that you have to build these things and you have to create your own development. I'm just saying, we had it difficult. Now, my question to you is, do you think that was designed for us to fail and taking our fathers away from us and think this is a generational thing?
I mean, it's definitely by design, but sadly, too often we become co-conspirators, man. And there's some work we gotta do.
I think that's big too. I think because and not that it's right, man. And we all have choices. You know what I mean? So we just put in a predicament where our father had choices, and their choices wasn't us. You know what I mean? So that co-conspirators part is big. And to Tell's point, just recognizing you're at a point where now having kids, you want to help on the other side. You don't want to walk away. You know what I mean? You want to be more involved.
Powerful. Can you further elaborate on co-conspiracy?
So, as the brother said, man, we have choices. And I think most of us understand the power of racism and white supremacy and the impact that it has on society, on our day-to-day interactions. But at the same time, man, we all have free will. And so I just believe that if we're going to repair the damage in the black community, that there's just some things that black men and black women have to come together. And we got to start moving, particularly when it comes to the health and vitality and safety in our community. Too often, we wait for somebody to come to save us, man. Nobody's coming to save us, man. Even, I'm not from Wilmington, but I'm driving and I'm looking at all of these cats standing on the corner. And it's painful to me. Whenever I drive into a city, young and old, that you got all these cats just hanging on the corner, man. So we got work to do, man. And I just think that fathers are the secret weapon in our community. I think if the family is going to be healthy, I think fathers play a major role in that.
Thank you for that. Let me ask you a question, Doc. What gave you the audacity to think you could become a surgeon?
A book.
Okay.
I was about 10, and I have to tell you, I grew up in the South in the 50s, which is a pretty difficult time. And how I ended up with a Life magazine issue, I have no idea. But I read the story of the first heart transplant in South Africa, and I thought, that's what I want to do. And all along the course, there are people that are going to help you, but there are also people that are going to tell you, you can't do this. And just have to believe in yourself and follow your dream and not let anyone take your dream from you. My dad was a disciplinarian. I mean, we had certain rules, and I learned to live by rules. And we were brought up that this, whatever you want to do, you just go after it. And you never let anyone take your dream away from you. And so I followed my dream. And, I listened to your stories. It's a little bit different than mine because I did have two parents. My dad died because he chose not to take care of his health, essentially. So I was raised by, I'll say, queens. My mom and sister they were on me. I wasn't straight. And so when I have three daughters, right, and so I have to, everything I do, I know they look at me as a black man. And I have to set a good example for them. I mean, I don't want them to see me mistreating anyone. I want them to see me being positive and moving forward, supporting them. Because if we don't set the example, one person at a time, who does? We can't wait for someone to rescue us. We have to take care of ourselves. And I credit you for seeing positive images and emulating them. That's what we need to do. There's no handbook for being a parent. We're going to make mistakes. But if we see positive things and we emulate them, guess what? We can change one person at a time.
So at 10 years old, so it obviously took you about 30 years to become a doctor. Listen, you know what that is? That's a supreme focus. At 10 years old, you had a supreme focus. Like, how did you not get distracted like so many people through the course of becoming a surgeon? And this goes to you as well, and then you as well, and Tim.
I mean, just to be perfectly honest, I did get distracted. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I was in an Ivy League school. I was president of the fraternity. I had, what everyone thought was the most beautiful woman on campus, and listen, I lost my focus, didn't study, and I paid the dues for it. So it took me about 3 years to get my life back together. But in the back of your mind, I mean, the dream is always there. I guess it may get a little bit delayed or deferred, but always I knew this is what I was going to do.
I appreciate that. And Brother David, you wrote something called Brooklyn Finest. And if I know Brooklyn Finest, I'm thinking about Biggie Small.
Right.
So where did you come up with the concept of your book?
So growing up in Baltimore, man, I was not a good student at all. But as I got older and with the support of my family, I was fortunate enough to go to college. I did my undergraduate degree, master's degree, and I'm currently in a PhD program. A lot of my motivation really came from my parents and from my larger community. I grew up in a community, West Baltimore, of black men, of all different kinds of careers, ways of life, but the fact that my community didn't give up on me. Even though I was arrested once or twice when I was 18, 19 years old, I grew up in a black community where black men and women did not give up on me. And so one of the things that I do now is I write children's books because I didn't see those images. And Doc, I know you were talking about images. Images are powerful. I just didn't see images of black children in books. And even when my children were younger, when we would go to the larger bookstores, you saw just a small number of books with images of black children. So I decided, once again, I wasn't going to ask white folks for permission. I started my own publishing company, and I've published a number of children's books, and have also been a ghostwriter on some. But a lot of it came down to my father, my mother, other black men in my community who just did not give up on me.
I appreciate that. And, that's a great testimony, Brother Kamil and Intel.
For me, my mom, man. My mom, at a really young age, she taught me discipline. And from that, she made me read often. She always kept me busy into different activities that kept my mind away from the street and focused on other things. And it allowed me to learn myself and learn what I like. And I always had a knack for business. I always enjoyed reading about how deals were made, how deals were created, and how businesses were created. But she also instilled in me that one of her sayings was, "You got two strikes against you. You're black and you're a man." So with that, I always had to be really, really careful. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, trouble was around the corner, right? So with her constantly saying that, I had to be really, really careful because one wrong thing and I'm a statistic. So I always carried that. So my goal was to just not be a part of what everything else, what everyone else was doing, and to try to make a difference.
I say for me, it was a bunch of trial and error. Because listen to what Doc was saying about how he had the parents that were this way and that way that kept him in line. I didn't, like it took me a while to figure things out and I'm still learning. You know, growing up where I grew up, and I don't like to keep saying it, but you know, it is true. The only thing that we saw outside of our door were drug dealers. Never wanted to be a teacher. They weren't appealing to me. The rappers, no, but NBA. I wanted to go to the NBA, so I chased basketball. So I'll say the city of Wilmington and certain people in the city kind of pushed me to do good, where like the majority of my friends were in and out of prison, in and out of, trouble with the law, drugs and this and that. And thank God they wouldn't let me get involved. Did I want to? I go, man, y'all have nice clothes. I want to do that. Tell go and play basketball, man. If you need some money for sneakers here, we're not going to let you do anything. But I would always want to when I was scared, but I wanted to. They wouldn't let me. So I chased the basketball dream, had some overseas tryouts. I went over there and I played a little bit, and it never worked out for me. So I didn't get my degree right away because I got some interest from some NBA teams. So I said, forget education, I'm going to the NBA. Had I had the parents there, no, focus on your education, I would have finished school at Virginia Union back in '99. So I had to wait, and like I said, the trial and error part, that didn't work. So I tried this and I tried that. So when I got back into, okay, I need to get a job to where I can take care of my family, because I had a daughter when I was over, I left to go to Germany and they didn't have my money right over there. So I said, I got to get back. And when my daughter picked me up from the train station with her mom, the reaction that she gave me, I was like, I can never leave her again. I can't go over there to chase my dream. I can't do that because the reaction that she gave me, I have to be here for this every day. So that was a part of making me mature and realize like I need to get myself together and focus on something to where I can do something that she can be proud of. So the failing at every basketball, I didn't fail jobs here, making $20,000 and not being able to take care of anything. And me finally finding a job and being able to affect some kind of change in kids, which was big for me. That was the only thing I could do other than basketball, I thought, because all the help that I needed, now I can provide for kids. So I say just the community in the city of Wilmington and my daughter, that helped me a lot. That helped me a lot to see, like, open my eyes to the big, what you call it, an epiphany. Yeah, I said that's what it was for me, having my child come home and seeing her reaction.
Are you proud of yourself?
I still have a lot to learn. I'm hard on myself too, because I look at other people, I'm like, wow, he's a doctor. And I look at this and I look at that, but I'm proud because of the effect that I have on the kids that I service. So yeah, for the most part, I say somewhat, yeah.
It's powerful.
I think we should be proud. I mean,
Absolutely.
because,
Absolutely.
we all can't do the same thing. We all shouldn't do the same thing. We all have a contribution to make, and it's different for reasons.
And the journey was never designed to be easy.
Right.
Yeah. I couldn't write a book. I couldn't run a restaurant. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but I'm glad there are brothers around that can do that type of stuff.
Is it difficult for African American men to be proud of themselves? Or do you feel like they're always hard on themselves, and that's why we our backs against the wall?
I think it's a constant pressure that we put on ourselves. So we constantly put the pressure on ourselves that our back is against the wall. That like we're so focused on getting to where we're trying to go that we can get there and not even recognize it. You know what I mean? Because we're so focused on getting there and trying to block out everything else. Because there's no mercy for black men. It's just the reality. Like, you know what I mean?
That's real, man. I mean, it's listening to you say that. I mean, it's profound. But I also think information is important. Because I also think too often, man, we work ourselves to death.
Yeah.
You know, looking at that stress. You know, white folks at the job, they taking off, they going sailing, skiing. We still at the office. And we taking the work home. And so, one of the things that I've learned, trial and error, and just over time, and listening to older brothers that I talk to, is man, you gotta step away from the work. So, like, I go fishing a lot. I just went snow tubing a couple of days ago. It's just so important, man, to just step away from the day to day. It's even important. Some days you just gotta step away from the family for a day or two and just go out and do things because the stress is killing black men. I mean, it's literally killing them. Along with poor nutritional habits, not having a primary care physician, relying on the emergency room as your primary doctor. I mean, when you think about the totality of all of that, man, it's killing us.
Well, that's powerful to say. This feast is more interesting. I feel like we had Jesus Christ at the table, the Last Supper. This is the beginning supper.
Yeah, it ain't the last supper.
It's the beginning supper. It's the beginning of something different.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think that spiritually, the Last Supper meant the beginning of something. The beginning of. So how do we feel about, so speaking of the beginning of change, how do we feel about raising kings? And what do we feel like the effects of what raising kings, what does it stand for within the community? And how important is it that we raise kings to see their true potential? And
I think it's very important because the awareness to show them that there are people that care about them, there are people that are available to show them something different. You know what I mean? Because all of us are sitting at this table because we were able to see something different. And I think our duty is to give back and put that hand on the shoulder and say, you know what? Let me help you steer this way to something different.
I would say be present. Us being present and showing them something different, and I guess, showing them what we didn't have. And that's like a thing for me is I like to give the kids something I didn't have. And that's a presence there, a genuine presence. And it's not about a dollar amount for me when I'm working with the kids, especially the at-risk youth, it's not a dollar amount that they can put on that because I feel like you need a little bit more because right now you're considered a pariah in society, so I have to kind of make you feel included. Like, no, I'm going to treat you just like I treat him. You're no different. And a lot of times they come out with the stigma of, man, I'm already different. I got a felony. And I'm like, man, I don't even know what your charges are. Like, I want to talk to you and deal with you. I'm not worried about your charges. I want to talk to you as man to man. Eye contact, just showing them how to be a man, the things that I've learned, that I've read about, that certain coaches showed me. I learned a lot of my male figures came through sports. That was my avenue. So a lot of my male figures came through that. So what I got from certain coaches and certain mentors that didn't know they were my mentors, like I made them my mentors. I saw something in them, I was like, that's going to be a mentor of mine. And, and I reach out to them and they still try to give me jewels to help me. So I think us being present with the kids, with the young kings, raising the kings, us being present and showing them, like modeling. We can't, because they're done with lip service. We have to, they need some action. So I want to be a part of that and showing them and what I do, not what I say.
that's powerful. And and Chandra often talks about kingships. When I think about kings, I think about a person that has a lot of equity, ruler over. And when you think about a prince to a king, a prince understands that when he's born, he has equity. Your expectation is for you to be ruler over someday, to be the ruler of. But why is it that our kids in our community move like they have no equity? Hear me out. So Doc is like, I ain't taking his mask off. I gotta oversee a whole hospital. or I gotta help other people. He understands his equity, his value, right? But when do we, as kings, start putting the equity in our youngins to realize the things you put in your system, the little shorties that you talk to, even the shorties, the queens, the princes, you know, the guys you get into the cars with the guns, smoking the marijuana, the dope, and all this other stuff. When do they start understanding their equity? How could we teach them that they do have equity and that there is something in them that needs to be fulfilled that can change the nation, potentially?
I mean, I think a lot of it is, man, you know, listening to what you were saying, is that we have to teach our children, particularly young black males, that it is their birthright to get everything that this world has to offer. Any career, any promotion, attending any school, whether it's Princeton, Yale, you know, Morehouse, North Carolina A&T, that's your birthright. You know, my son is a junior at Florida A&M University, right, practically on the full ride. I remember when he was younger, a teacher told us that my son would never amount to anything, and he would be in special education for the rest of his life. He got a 3.6 GPA at Florida A&M University because we help him understand that that's your birthright, son. Go get it, and we're gonna help you get it. And that's why Raising Kings Weekend is so important, because we, like you said, the talking is over. These they need to see us. They need to see us walking around. They need to meet Dr. Blackwell and all of the brothers here. We chopping it up. They need to see that you could be a physical trainer. They need to see that you can be a therapist. They need to see that you can own your own restaurant in downtown Wilmington. They need to see it, because I think too often we've talked a lot, but we haven't backed it up by showing up.
I agree. I think we have to promote ourselves. I mean, we have to be proud of what we've done, what we've accomplished, and set an example. And, you know, if we're raising kings, we raise them to be strong, ambitious. They have to oversee a kingdom, but they also have to be sensitive, caring, and loving. And I hope that's what they get out of some of seeing us today, that, you know, this is what it is to be a king.
I think this is like a moment of healing for all of us.
Yeah.
Just the brothers coming together, really different backgrounds. I think that it takes all instruments to build something, and everybody has their strengths. And me personally, I suddenly became proud of myself because I feel like I do have it. And all of the experiences within my lifestyle was all quintessential to me becoming the person I am today. So I like to say that if you met me in the 2000s, that person that you saw me as, that's who I used to be. 2005, and I don't run from it. I say, this is exactly who I am. And I think that that's something that I want to impress in, you know, Raising Kings. And I work with Chandra all the time. A sister that's behind the scene, in front of the scene, on every street, every building, every facility, because she fights for those young men that are in need. And I think that that's something that I would love to always continue to be a part of. I think we all are alike.
Yeah, we're all connected.
And we never would have knew that each other exists if it wasn't for somebody like Chandra, you know, Raising Kings. You know what I'm saying too? And the funny thing is, she has all of us in her Rolodex, so that's what makes her even more powerful.
Yeah.
Because she knows exactly who to contact and who to go to. I think that's amazing.
Every part of it, you know what I mean? Every part of it. I hope you guys enjoyed your acai bowls.
Off the chain.
I left y'all drink pineapple juice to wash it down with. I hope y'all enjoyed that also. And thanks for, you know, us having this roundtable Kings in the Kitchen conversation.